All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. It is Sarah. It's at carnivore.yogi on Instagram. And I've got a really special guest here today that I actually heard for the first time on the Carnivore cast. Absolutely love his story. It's very inspirational. And so I'm really excited to share it with you guys today. Welcome. Why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself to everybody who's watching?
My name is Hadi. I lost 235 pounds following Chris and Mark Bell when I noticed they were doing the carnivore diet. And that's really what interested me in it, that these guys were only eating meat. And I decided to finally give it a shot instead of yo-yo dieting off every other diet that I've heard of. And that's how my journey started.
That's awesome. So what was life like before you did this diet? Like, tell everyone a little bit of how your daily life was and kind of what gave you the push to actually just start.
So, I've been heavy my whole life. Like a lot of us, we don't know where to start. You hear about all these diets and, you see all these people that advertise them and you're like, man, I want to look like that, right? But in all reality, all our genetics are a little bit different. So I've yo-yo dieted with every diet you could think of, to where I just kind of basically gave up. I reached an all-time high of 405 pounds, which that's what I weighed in. I could have been heavier because I just gave up on getting on the scale at that point. My health went really bad to where, I started waking up at night. I needed to use the restroom about 2-3 times an hour. I couldn't even have like a sip of water without having to go to the bathroom right away. I didn't even know what was wrong with me at that time. I would wake up, my bed sheets are covered in sweat. I knew something was wrong with me, but I was dragging my feet at the time. I didn't want to go to the doctor. I haven't been in a long time. My ex-wife, basically said enough's enough. So she went ahead and found me a doctor, filled out all my new patient paperwork. And she said, hey, on Monday, you got a doctor's appointment. At that point, everything hit me like, wow, this is serious. I didn't know much about diabetes. I mean, I know there's diabetes, but I was so new to it. I didn't know anything about it. When my blood sugar was tested, it was around like 530, and then I learned, hey, you could be in a diabetic coma. That's pretty high. That's how, no knowledge to diabetes that I had, because I've never dealt with anything like that. So, going to the doctors, obviously everything checked out that I was just going bad, Basically, I was digging myself a grave, eating the way everybody, in the world is used to eating, which I thought that's how you eat, right? Because that's what I was so, grown up to do. So he prescribed me like everything you could think of, which naturally that's what doctors do. They want to make sure you're back on the right track. Yeah. But for me, I'm walking out of that doctor's office, my daughter at the time was in kindergarten. I sat in the car and all I thought about was, man, I'm not going to see my daughter go into the first grade. I basically walked out knowing, hey, I'm digging myself an early grave. I need to get my stuff on track. I sat in the car looking at all these prescriptions he just gave me, and I thought of this vitamin shop. It's almost like a Nutri shop, near me. I went over there, and of course, this guy that works there is all jacked. He's a bodybuilder. He does shows, right? And I walked in there. I said, look, man, I'm not looking for a magic pill. I just want to know what you're eating so I can become healthy too. Guys like that usually weigh all their food, everything's about calories because they're trying to hit a certain target that day. Man, I've never done anything like that in my life, let alone follow a diet plan for a whole week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I took all his advice. I wrote everything down. I went and purchased everything he said. I even did it wrong because that's how complicated it is. For people that do shows, they're eating every 2.5 hours, 3 hours, right? About 6 to 7 meals a day. Yeah. And it's all portioned. So I tried that and it was so difficult for me. Even like, a lot of people are like, okay, what if you wanted to go out and eat? Well, you really can't, because you're like, okay, does this weigh a certain amount at the restaurant? You know, everything is all about, it has to make sense for that calorie. So I was sitting at home. I came across a documentary, Bigger, Stronger, Faster, which Chris Bell created. I started looking these guys up. You know, why I got so intrigued to this documentary, you know, Mark Bell in the beginning of the movie says he had a learning disability, which I struggled with my whole life. So put me in that category. And I was so intrigued. I'm like, man, this guy's jacked. And look at him. He's powerlifting. And nobody looks at him different. So I looked up YouTube and I started following these guys. And I'm like, all they're doing is just eating meat, throwing away the bread. How easy is that, right?
Yeah.
I kid you not. I threw away the scale and everything that this bodybuilder told me. I just ate meat. And that first month, the weight was flying off of me.
Wow.
It was insane. So long story short, you know, I kept going to the doctor's office and he would prescribe me more stuff because he's like, man, this guy's, everything I'm giving him, it looks like he's getting back on track. So a year later, I kept all the prescriptions that he gave me in this envelope. And I went back and you know, we did my yearly checkup and he goes, I think something's wrong with the test. You know, everything came out normal. And he's used to seeing me like, hey, this guy's dying.
Yeah.
So he sent me back. I came back like a couple weeks later after he got my new results. And he's trying to compare them. And he goes, man, you're healthy. And I took out that envelope and I said, look, you prescribed me every pill you could think of without, you know, asking me what my diet was. You know, not saying like those pills might have not worked. They probably would have. But I just, look, I was already in the hole as is. I just want to see if I wasn't going to be dependent on medication for my whole life. And for me, I'm speaking just for myself, I'm glad I made that decision to try it without any medication and just change my nutrition. And eating red meat, which we've all learned, you know, since we were younger, hey, it's bad for you. I'm healthier than I've ever been in my life.
That's
You know?
amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the one thing you mentioned was just, you did this bodybuilder diet versus you did carnivore. Now I've done both. I'm curious to see, you know, how did you feel doing the bodybuilder diet? Were you starving all the time? Were you tired versus carnivore? Talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
So here's the thing. In all reality, you're eating about 6 to 7 meals a day, which I'm glad you've done that because you understand what I'm talking about. You're consistently eating about 2.5 hours to 3 hours. You would think, you know, you're not hungry all the time, but you're feeling like you're exhausted because you're trying to stay on this schedule to hit a certain target calorie, right?
Yes.
So you're constantly in your mind, you're like, okay, my next meal is at this time. I just ate, but my next meal is at this time. I didn't have all the energy that people think I had because I was eating more.
Right.
Honestly, I got from that is more cravings because of the carbs, right? The carbs turned into sugar cravings. Well, at least for me, that's what they did.
Oh, me too. Oh, yeah.
I needed to get away from that. Because I was eating more and it wasn't making sense. Yes, I was making progress because obviously I was eating still a lower amount of calories than what, you know, I've been eating my whole life. But the sugar cravings were there. You know what I mean? Which now I've eliminated all the carbs. And what worked for me is I could walk past anything and say, yeah, I don't really want it. But back then I'd walk past it and it's in my head. Or if something was in the pantry for one of my kids, it's in my head. And for me, you know, I was so big, everybody knew I ate, but I was a closet eater. So if everybody went to sleep, I would roam through the kitchen. You know what I mean? I know everybody's asleep. They're not going to know I ate it all. But of course I ate it all. So,
oh, yeah. I get it. I mean, my highest weight was 235 pounds.
Wow.
And I did this, you know, like you hide, it's part of addiction, you know, you don't want anyone to see. And it's almost like it's not enjoyable if somebody's watching you because you do want to just be able to be free to eat as much as you want and not have anyone watching you or judging you or trying to stop you. And so, and it just becomes this vicious cycle, you know, and you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. But it's, you know, I think the powerful thing about your story, what you're saying is like, okay, I did bodybuilder diet versus carnivore diet. and you were able to stop that kind of like binging cycle,
Exactly.
and people don't really talk about how it's like a physiological thing as well. Like you wake up and you're like, I don't want to do it, but your blood sugar is so jacked up
Yes.
from the night before of binging, and eating those foods, that's almost like you can't help yourself. You just get
Right.
into this whole cycle,
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
one thing is, a lot of people, they'll say, okay, well, I had a cheat meal, right? For somebody being so heavy, you can't just really have one cheat meal, right?
No.
Because it spirals down to almost like a week's worth of binging. And then at that point, you're like, man, I backtracked so much. At this point, I already gave up. You know what I
Yep.
mean? To
Oh,
where,
100%.
yeah. And that's the thing is, when I talk to people, they're like, hey, do you ever have a cheat meal? Well, what's really a cheat meal? If you don't already crave it, why do you force yourself to do it? Because you're going to feel horrible. One thing is, for you and I, we don't really cheat on any of these diets, but when you do cheat on them, it's almost like you have a hangover. You feel like complete crap the next day.
Oh yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not worth it at all. And I hear that
Absolutely not.
time and time again from people doing carnivore and even keto too, is just like, why would I do that? It's not for me. When doing carnivore, like my cravings have all gone away for that stuff.
Yes.
Unless I'm in a tough spot emotionally. And then sometimes that it's like more of a mental thing of like your mind thinks, well, if I ate that, then I'd feel better. And then you kind of like snap out of it. You're like, nope, bad idea. But the physical craving to go and have that cheat meal, to go eat the fries or nachos or whatever, it's just not appealing.
I agree with you. It's not there for me either. I could sit around anybody, and in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I used to be that person, and now it just doesn't even look good to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So how did your family respond to the weight loss? Like how did and your loved ones, all of that, were they concerned you were just eating red meat, or were they trying to stop you? Like how did that go down? Yeah.
So initially, when you tell anybody, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and throw everything out and just eat red meat, right? Everybody kind of freaks out. Your body's already shutting down as is, right? And they're like, well, now you're really killing yourself.
Yeah.
And I started eating it, and everybody would judge me like, what are you doing? You're really, and after that month, I started, I'm not saying I shredded down all the way, but I mean, I lost a pretty good chunk because my body's like, hey, what is this guy doing? He's not putting all that junk in there. When they started seeing the results, and then my blood tests from the doctors, it opened up their eyes that I'm actually doing something right. Everything that they've learned about eating red meat wasn't all it's true to be. That, it is kind of healthier for you than all the other junk they're putting in their bodies.
Yeah. I think that's the craziest thing for a lot of people that come to carnivore, is just like, wait a minute, we've always been told red meat's going to kill you.
Right.
It's unhealthy. We're so brainwashed in our society to think that it's like this, like kryptonite, it's going to kill you. And then a story like yours where your health has just been restored, and now you're powerlifting and doing all this amazing stuff. Like, could you have, when you were back in your overweight days and having all these health problems, could you have imagined, the turn that your life would take, and how different, would you have even like fathomed that?
Absolutely not. I never even thought I would ever even be in a powerlifting meet. And I just completed my first one a couple of weeks ago. I never in my life thought I would be stepping into a gym, even lifting any weights. I thought I figured my life out. All I am is an overweight dad. And I accomplished so much more than what I even thought I was capable of doing, And the best part about this is, when I was training for my powerlifting meet, I'd always post videos, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing leading up to it, right? Because I really wanted the world to see, like, look, I was this big, and just eating red meat even opened up my mind to something different. But I get a lot of messages from people, and I get it. It's questions, about the diet.
Oh, yeah.
And they're always like, you really think not eating carbs, you're going to have energy to lift big numbers? Honestly, I wasn't even expecting to lift anything big. I just wanted to do a powerlifting meet so my kids would watch me and say, like, look what my dad did, right?
Yeah.
But I ended up, on my last lift of the night, I lifted my old body weight, which
Wow.
was,
I saw
you know,
that. That was
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I know 400 pounds isn't really much to most people that could destroy it normally at the gym, but that was everything to me. To
Yeah.
where I've never touched that kind of weight in my life. And to be able to do that with no carbs, there you go. There's your answer.
Awesome. And, I love the story of how you connected with Chris and Mark.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the cool things when I heard you
Right.
talking with Scott on Carnivore Cast. So talk a little bit about that, because that's
Yeah,
such a cool
absolutely.
story.
So we learned my father was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago. And I know Chris Bell had released a documentary, A Leap of Faith, about the Kratom mind bullet that they currently sell at the store. And I know he used it for pain relief and stuff like that. I mean, my dad went through so many treatments, to where he was drained. I mean, there was no way that he'd be able to get out of bed. It got to a point to where he didn't want to sit up anymore. And I was just sitting on my couch. I said, okay, what if I just reach out to this guy through email? He gets a lot of emails, messages. He instantly wrote me back. Oh man, I jumped out of the couch. I went to show my ex-wife. I was like, look, Chris Bell just wrote me back, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who would have thought I'm going to get an email back, right? I just said, for the hell of it, I'm going to give it a shot. He actually invited me down to the gym and gave me some mind bullet so my dad could try it. But, I had to be selfish at that time and say, like, look, you changed my life. I had to show him before and
Yeah.
after. This is Chris Bell, right? Yeah. So after that, now him and I are very good friends. We keep in contact a lot, and I work out with him at the gym. But this is a guy I looked up to. I watched his documentary. It changed my life from watching these, him and his brother. And yeah, now I train with them at Mark's gym.
That's so cool.
It still feels like I'm dreaming, because at my first powerlift meet, Chris Bell was the one that filmed my whole little thing.
Yeah.
A guy that I watched on Netflix. So yeah, those two guys are amazing. They give back so much, and they don't expect anything in return. And I owe these guys a lot. They've done a lot for me.
That's so cool. I love it. I love your whole story, because
Thank you.
it's like you were in this place that was just very dark and very difficult and extremely, I'm sure, very painful physically, painful mentally. And now you've had, just stuff that's happening for you. You couldn't have imagined it would ever happen. And it just came from taking that step to say, you know what?
Yes.
I'm just going to take this first step to start taking care of myself and do something different. And now your whole life is different. And though I'm sure, like, the way you think about things and view things and see things is different too.
Absolutely. Everything I look at now is in a positive way. And not that I'm saying, everything is positive in my life.
Right.
But I don't look at it anymore as, okay, that's the end of that. There's no way working around it, right? Where before, when I was at my heaviest, that's all I thought is, okay, it is what it is. That's my life. Well, now, if it's an obstacle, no, we're gonna figure it out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now I think of everything differently now. I'm more into let's fix the problem instead of back then. Okay, well, it's a problem. There's nothing I could do about it. But yeah, in all reality, there is something you could do about it.
Yeah, I think you learn how to take an obstacle and not let it take you down,
Exactly. It's crazy because, even though it's just being overweight, your mindset is a lot different, it's a lot different. It's almost like back then I wanted someone to hold my hand and say, no, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. In all reality, nobody really held my hand. I needed to just hold my own hand and say, dude, get your ass up and figure it out. And that's exactly what, I'm grateful for that moment that I had where I thought I was going to die. Yeah. It really woke me up. And I thought of my daughter at that time, without her, man, I'm so blessed that that happened to me, because right now that I changed my life, I actually have a 1-year-old son,
Oh,
so
wow.
I even gained something more of a blessing from just changing my life than anything, back,
Yeah.
he would have never been here if I didn't change my life. So
Yeah. And, your kids see you and they look up to
yeah.
you. And, you know, as somebody, when I had my daughter, I was 235 pounds, and it was like, okay, she's 12 now. And it
Hmm.
was at that point that I decided I'm going to lose this weight and I'm not going to gain it back. I'm not going to do this again. Cause I had lost it. I've lost 100
Sure.
pounds 3 times in my life. And that was like that third time I was like, now that I have a kid, I don't want her to grow up and see me struggle
Right.
this way and have, I had so much shame around everything. And I think people should love themselves regardless of what size they are.
Right.
But for me, I felt bad. I felt terrible. I felt sick. I was tired all the time.
Yes.
It wasn't a good way to live. And you don't want your kids to think, okay, well, that's what I'm going to be when I grow up,
Absolutely. Because you don't think of it that way until you start, actually making the change. Actually, you do
Yeah.
think of it, but you just don't take that step. Just like
Yeah.
you said you've lost the weight and went back. I honestly have lost weight, and I gained it
Mhm.
all back and even more, because I yo-yo dieted with all these other,
Yep.
diets that everybody hears about, right?
Oh, yeah.
And until I switched my diet to something as simple as eating red meat, eat steak,
Yeah.
man, I've been able to maintain this
It's
like
awesome.
way, yeah, it's,
It's
one,
sustainable. You can't live
yeah,
your whole life eating like Weight Watchers, calorie restricting,
no,
1 cup of popcorn and half a
no
granola
way.
bar. And, you just
No,
can't, that's not sustainable.
no, for us, it might work for a week or a couple months, but
Yeah.
that half a granola bar is going to turn into a full bar or maybe
A
5 bars.
box. It's a
Yes,
box. Forget
yes,
like, yeah.
yes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then at that point, you're like, well, I already
Yeah.
binged and I ate this box. What else is in the cupboard? I already had a cheat night, and that's where you spiral off of that. This has been the easiest diet to sustain and follow. I could even go out with my family and eat and say, you know what, I don't have to count anything. Just, I want a steak.
Yeah.
So that's how simple it
Yeah.
is. It's,
Excuse me.
yeah.
There's so much pollen out here. I'm sorry. I keep coughing.
No, you're good.
And I forgot to bring a glass of water. But yeah, I just, for me, what I was saying is a cheat meal and a cheat day would turn into a cheat month, or even like a
Yes.
cheat year. I mean, I've had
Yes.
a cheat that's lasted an entire year before.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that,
Yeah.
people say stupid stuff like just live a little, just go and have, a piece of cake on the birthday or whatever. And some people can do that. But
Right.
for me, I'm just not interested. I've tried it before. I'm 40 and I'm like, you know what? I have 40 years of experience with cheat meals, and
Yes.
I just would rather have a ribeye, honestly.
I agree with you, because when people tell me to cheat, I tell them the same thing. I've been cheating my whole life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
where did
Why
it
would
get
I?
me? Yeah.
Right. It doesn't do anything
It
helpful.
doesn't do any good. I've cheated my whole
Yeah.
life. I had all these meals my whole life. And now that I've sustained something for, going on 3 years, why would I go back to that? Because for,
Yeah.
that many years of my life, it did nothing for me.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
one of the things that I got from all this is I could go into a store and buy whatever shirt I want, instead of having to go to like one store that carried 2 different kinds of t-shirts. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
My favorite story to tell people is I have a Jack the Skeleton sweater. I know it's just a regular Disney sweater, right?
Yeah.
But, we were season pass holders for Disneyland. I always took my daughter, every year. Even just for the weekend we'd go. My favorite part was one night I was cold there, and I was able to go to the stand and actually buy a sweater, to where versus if a couple years from that, I would have just been cold until we decided to go back to the hotel. But
Wow.
that's like my favorite sweater out of anything I own, because I got to purchase it with my daughter and I was able to fit in it at Disneyland. So
That's so
yeah,
cool.
thank
Yeah,
you.
when I was really overweight, I remember I had like 2 different outfits that I would wear, and I would just wash them and wear the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, I called it my uniform, like,
Yeah.
jokingly, but it was really one of the most depressing things I ever had to deal with in my whole life, of like waking up and just having like 2 outfits, because I was like, you're so overweight, like, I don't want to go buy a bunch of clothes and invest money and then you have to go to a special store. You
Yeah.
know, it was a messed up place to be in. So I
Right.
totally relate to just being able to go somewhere, buy something off the rack and then wear it. It's, people take that for granted. They just don't
I know.
understand what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
your closet only has maybe like 4 shirts of the same ones that are
Yeah.
different colors,
Yeah.
rather than now I actually have shirts that I could fit into, that, you
Yeah.
know, I don't have to have those shirts that no one's ever seen before. It looks like they were tailored
Right.
for me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. I get it.
yeah.
Cool. Well, you know, we were talking a little bit off camera before we started, and we won't
Yes.
mention the C word at all because YouTube doesn't like it. But now we're all kind of in this situation where we're home, and I think a lot of people
Right.
are seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people say, "I'm going to just go off and eat
Right.
quarantine snacks, or go off carnivore, go off keto, whatever. Stop doing my workouts," and talk a little bit about kind of like what you're doing right now to
Sure.
stay on the path, if you will.
You know, honestly, on my Instagram, I always post that I have rubber bands around the door. I'm just trying to make, you know, light of the situation, which I do. And
Yeah.
that's the crazy part. I really do, because I'm trying to make everything work, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, nobody's
Yeah.
workout's going to be the same. You know, we're all
Yeah.
actually used to going into a gym and having all this equipment that we were, you know, around all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't take this time as an excuse. Whatever was on my plate before this happened, my plate stayed the same. The portion stayed the same. Yeah, I'm not working out as hard, but my heart rate is up the whole time. I'm figuring it out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's
Yeah.
movements that I could do without weights that, you know, I could do more reps of. I'm not going to use this time as an excuse. There's no way I'm going to backtrack. There's no way I'm going to have an extra meal. There's no way I'm going to have that cookie. There just isn't. I worked too
Yeah.
hard for this to have, you know, something like this that happened, make an excuse for me to say, okay, you know, I'm going to backtrack a little. No way. You know,
Yeah.
there's always something you could do to occupy your mind off that cheat meal. And you know, a lot of people ask me, hey, do you have those cheat? No, why would I need them? You know what I mean? Why
Yeah.
would I need them then? Why would I need them now? It's not going to
Yeah.
do anything but make the situation even more worse that we're in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're stuck at home, but you know what? I figure it out. There's always some type of workout you could do to kind of be similar to what you were doing in the gym. Obviously not the same, but you know what? These rubber bands are making it work
Yeah.
for now.
And not just giving yourself an excuse to like eat
Right.
anything that you want, because like you said, it's just going to make the situation worse. You're going to feel
Right.
bad, you know, and who wants to
Absolutely.
be stuck at home feeling bad? You can't even go out and distract yourself, you know?
Exactly, because then you're stuck at home, you know? That's the
Yeah.
worst part about it. It's not like you can go out and say, you know, I'm going to get my mind off of it. Well, no, there's nowhere
Right.
to go, you know?
Right.
Your mind's going to
Yeah.
be thinking about, you know what, I already binged. What's another
I might
one,
as well
right?
keep going. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'll be stuck in here for another 6 weeks or so. So I might as
Yeah.
well just eat whatever I want. And then I'll start over
Exactly.
again once it's over. And it's like, yeah, it's easy to, I think that kind of mindset's a trap. You know, you just can fall
Right.
into it. But, you know, having been through everything that you've been through,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it's awesome to watch. I watch your
Thank you.
Instagram and
Oh,
I'm
thank
like, you
you.
know, he's still doing the deal, and it's cool
Yeah.
to kind of see other people out there who are really still doing the deal. And
Right.
yeah, so thanks for posting all this stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, thank you. I know a lot of times people read my stuff and they're like, man, what's he talking about? It's just I'm bringing light into the situation.
Yeah.
That's it. You know what I mean? And that's all anybody should take out of this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't look at it like, okay, life sucks now. Well, it doesn't, because you're still around people that you love. So make the best of it still. Nobody should
Yeah.
feel like, you know, we're being punished for any of this. Just make the light, you know, make it work. You know, make the best of the situation. You know, you're still around your loved ones. You know what I mean? So that's why, you know, a lot of my stuff that I post, it's just I just want to make somebody smile. That's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the hardest time right now is to make somebody smile, because everybody is looking at it like, okay, I'm trapped in here. I can't do
Yeah.
anything. I feel trapped also, but
Yeah.
I'm also not going to make it an excuse. You know,
Yeah.
just that's it. It's just, I just, want to stay on track. And if I can make somebody smile while I'm doing it, great. Then I won for the day.
Yeah, and the whole thing of just, I feel a lot of gratitude in your posts. That's what I
Oh,
like
thank you.
about it.
Thank you.
And gratitude is the one thing that we can all practice right now. And
Thank
I'm
you.
not saying like put a blind eye over and ignore
No,
the serious stuff happening,
right.
but you can be grateful for
Absolutely.
the things that are in your life right now, this
Absolutely.
very minute, and that can turn everything around, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It always just started off with a positive. I mean, if we're getting out of bed and we're like, man, there's another day stuck at home. Well,
Yeah.
you're stuck at home with someone you love. Make the
Yeah,
best of it.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's not, I, I told you, I try to look at everything in a positive light. I know not everything is positive in my life, but there isn't that much negative in my life for me to, look
Yeah.
at it in the other way but that. So I'm
Yeah,
very
I know.
blessed that I got a second chance, and I'm going to run with this second chance. So.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Well,
Oh, no, thank you.
where can people find you on the internet, on Instagram? How can they
So
find
I
you?
only have an Instagram, and it's at _carnivore_chef.
Cool. And I'll link that below the video so everyone
Awesome.
can go follow you and
Yeah,
watch your story and stay motivated, especially right now when there's,
absolutely.
temptation everywhere.
Absolutely. I encourage everybody, man, whether we're following each other or not, tag us in the post.
Yeah.
We see the tags. I just want to
Yeah.
read what somebody did that day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Even if it's like a small clip of a rubber band workout, great.
Yeah.
Because maybe I can incorporate that into my day, right? That's something I'm
Absolutely.
not doing. That's all it is right
Absolutely.
now, we're all a team in this together. And,
Yeah.
none of us are doing anything different. We're all doing the same stuff.
Yep.
I encourage everybody, man, tag me in your post, whatever. I'll read it. I'll probably reply
Yeah.
back. I reply back to everybody.
It's
We all
awesome.
have time right now. Let's just make the
Yeah.
best of it.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
thank
Thank
you
you.
again for joining me, and I'll
Oh,
definitely be sure to tag you so everyone can go and find you.
awesome. Thank you for
But
having me.
yeah, you're welcome. And have a really wonderful rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you.
All right, hang on one second.